All right, let's talk a little bit more about what forensic scientists do. One of the big things they look for is drugs and evidence of drugs. They see the same drugs over and over again. Crystal meth is today's big problem, and it's easy to make. It's stinky, so they do it in rural sites. It's incredibly addictive, so it is quite popular. Of course, it makes you nuts, and why not get addicted to it? Okay. Another thing is marijuana is an old favorite. It won't go away. They see that a lot. And they do toxicology, looking for poisons. They look at body fluids for alcohol, drugs, general poisons, before and after death, lovely stomach contents. They can look at the food that you took in, especially indigestibles like cellulose, so don't eat celery before you're about to be murdered, I guess. Or maybe you do, so they can identify you. Hair, fingernails, toenails, made of a protein called keratin. And they can look at this stuff and really see what you've been up to for the last 6 months, giving you a chemical record. I think that's neat. First, we're going to look at chemical reagents as analytical methods, and then we're going to look at instrumentation, instruments to do. Chemical reagents have been around forever, and usually we're going to look for something that changes something, change the color of something. It is very rarely quantitative. We're just looking at qualitative. Blood is a hemoglobin, iron-containing protein. This is what This is what is identified when they look for blood. They're usually looking for iron. It's a protein. Oh, we have so many proteins. Remember, 10,000 different proteins in the human body. That's just an arrow. Okay, and what this cool stuff does is it goes to the lungs, picks up an O2 oxygen, and then carries it back to the blood, to the cells. All right, test for blood, testing for iron. Please know that just because it's a cool thing to know. Phenolphthalein, you'll see the people on TV say, I'm going to do a phenolphthalein test and it'll turn pink. Other things will make it turn pink too. It is looking for a catalyst. And iron will be the thing that in blood makes it count. And luminol is fun because it glows purple. And again, iron catalyzes the reaction, makes it happen more easily, and we get to see it show up. This is an artist's rendition of hemoglobin. These little spirals are big molecules. And hemoglobin is a globular. See why it's called globular? These are all globs. And it's got these little packages are called hemes. And each hemoglobin has 4 hemes. The different colors are supposed to be different atoms. And here's heme. And there's my little iron right in the middle. Here. It's hard to see, I'm afraid. Here's the oxygen that would be in your blood, in your lungs, and then she bonds to the iron. The heme becomes planar. That's kind of cool. Dome versus planar. We've talked about the geometry of molecules. And then oxygen is transferred from the lungs to the cells. Okay. And the oxygen-rich heme is bright red. Without oxygen, it's not blue, really. It's more of a burgundy, dark color. But anyway, and then this is very efficient. Look at this. It takes the product of metabolism, CO2, back from the cell to the lungs, and you exhale. What a beautiful cyclical thing. So chemical reagents test for colors. Easy to discern. You want it fast. How about checking for the macronutrients? Remember, we had 3 macronutrients, 3 of these, and enzymes are biological catalysts. And catalysts make reactions go faster. And there are details to this. They make them go faster without being consumed, so a little dab will do ya. But that's the gist of it. The Benedict solution She's a blue liquid, turns green, and it's looking for saccharides, glucose, one ring like fructose, glucose, those little monomers. It is a little bit quantitative, semi-quantitative. It turns yellow when you got larger amounts, green when less, and then brick red if you got a huge amount. Iodine, yeah, just iodine, is it turns black or blue in the presence of polysaccharides. Remember, we had 3 of these we looked at. We looked at starch, glycogen, and cellulose. All right. These are the big polymers. Fats, you can just pour some on you can identify them by making a paper bag shiny. I know, high tech. And then the burette, again, I see this in writing, and I think it's pronounced burette reagent, is a blue liquid that turns lavender to violet in the presence of a protein. So we got proteins, polysaccharides, fats, monosaccharides. You guys should know what all those are. So I've now mentioned, I've got these 2 are 1 of my macronutrients. Here's 2, and she is 3. Hydrogen peroxide, the same stuff that uses disinfectant perhaps. She is decomposes through enzymes. So if it comes in contact that something is an enzyme, it will decompose into water and oxygen gas. Okay, hydrogen peroxide has this formula, and she'll just break up. And how would she break up? Hello, that's good. Poisons has always been a popular method of murder, and the dosage makes the poison. You give a tablespoon of table salt, you're going to kill a kid. You keep all salt away from a child, that'll kill him too. So a little dab will do you. Many poisons act like you've got, the flu, stomachache, headache, vomiting. And for the ages, many metals would poison them by accident. Or gosh, even worse, they would give them these metals so that they would throw up, thinking that purging them was healthy. I love it. Anyway, how about arsenic? Arsenic has got the chemical symbol AS, and has got 33 protons. All right, so she's got the 33 numbers her atomic number. It's also called inheritance powder because it is flavorless, tasteless, and it was used a lot. Heavy metals, that just means their density is over 4 grams per cubic centimeter. And this used to be very popular. Rat poison doesn't contain thallium anymore. I guess you can find some, but for the most part, it has a horrible thing that makes the rats start bleeding internally. And the reason why they want to do this is so they leave the building looking for water to alleviate their pain. How lovely. Anyway, mercury damages the central nervous system, causing fatigue, tremors, psychosymptoms. Yeah, mercury poisoning. The Mad Hatter, because they used to use mercury to cure beaver skin, and would make the people who worked with it nuts. It was used in medicine, especially if you had a sexually transmitted disease. So that was one good reason not to get syphilis. The doctors knew to put gloves on, but and even somebody like Isaac Newton thought that they could actually convert mercury to gold. This whole alchemy idea. Mercury is still used to extract gold from ores in some places of the Amazon basin. Oh, it's just horrible if you ever see it. But the problem is that it's cheap. Okay, lead is another one. Remember, he's got the symbol Pb. Greeks and Roman used to add it to wine. Yum, yum. Make it a little sweeter. Very small amounts. Port brandy and lead crystal cause gout, which is a nasty thing where you get this uric acid between your joints. Ooh. And I think King Henry VIII had gout. He was such a lovely man. Sufferers include Ben Franklin, Charles Darwin, Christopher Columbus, Martin Luther, John Milton, and I'm not sure if that's because they had port brandy or what. Okay. Analysis of bottles from the early 1700s show about 1 parts per million lead. Not enough to kill, but enough to irritate the gut and acts as a laxative. Good for the digestion. Made you poop. Oh, how great. People, oh my. And then moonshine, especially in the early part of the 20th century, they used to run it through car radiators. And car radiators had lead solder in it. And so people who drank the moonshine would get lead poisoning. Arsenic. Arsenic is odorless, white, and colorless. It displaces elements like sulfur and enzymes and just wreaks havoc on your chemical processes. You can become what's it called? Your tolerance can be raised if you keep taking small amounts. For example, New Orleans, there's a cute one where a man thought it was good for him, so he would take it every day on his baguette, and then his wife replaced it with actual sugar, and nobody knew that he had been eating the arsenic, so he died from the absence in agonizing fashion. And of course, there was nothing left to associate her with the murder. Rasputin, who got who got poisoned, shot, stabbed, everything, and seemed to live, and his reputation as a crazy man of God grew. He used to ingest arsenic to build tolerance because he just assumed people were going to poison him, and he was right. And these guys, oh yeah, they would eat arsenic to show that God was going to protect them. Plus, there were women who would eat it so that their skin would become more alabaster, more white-colored. Fashion is lovely. This is another one. They still talk about the Yorkshire Witch. Mary Bateman became celebrated as a fortune teller, and she used to give medicines to people at great costs. And surprisingly, a number of her people died, and nobody really associated with her, and especially since she would take their money afterwards. But she was quite beautiful. There's her death mask, and they tanned her body and put it on display at the hospital and sold entry fees. Oh golly! Oh yeah, here's the hyperpigmented. Sick. All right, so what about Napoleon? Napoleon was doing okay, and he was in the most rich time for giving these pejoratives, laxatives and things to make you. Oh, I don't know. They thought that it would make you feel better. 2 of his servants died, so people thought, well, he's probably been killed. But what they think happened was that he actually was given treatments. This is what I think. He was given treatments, and he became very, very ill. Purges and emetics are arsenic, antimony, mercury, holy cowini. But now they'll keep digging him up or take him out of Napoleon's tomb in Paris, and they'll keep cutting off his hair and checking out to see if they can figure out what happened during his lifetime. Remember I told you this stuff grows slowly, so they can see over a period of time what was in his body. But so much stuff was in the wallpaper everywhere. So okay, this guy, his wife was really quite not very smart because she sued for wrongful death after he died. Notice that he's got all these kind of symptoms that I don't know, some of them look like flu, some scream something is very wrong. They looked at his hair, found that his thallium levels, he was working with thallium at the University of Pennsylvania, but they went up on weekends, and the thing that they started was that she murdered her first husband by poisoning as well. She got insurance from that one, and she became greedy, and, well, she was insane, of course, but poor people that suffered from this. And now plant-based, those were metals, now we got plant-based. Opiates, they've been around forever. They're found in the poppy flowers. Hippocrates also thought poppy wine was good for you. It gets in the way. It sits in the receptors all over your central nervous system. It feels good, relieves pain. Then a little bit higher doses, you stop breathing, deep sedation. You also have to keep getting more and more to get the same effect. And lots of doctors, because they have access to it, and again, people would people just kind of fall asleep. And if you're old, they think, well, your heart's just stopped, and they did not have the means or the desire to do autopsies. And he got away with a lot of money and people. Dosage makes the poison. Caffeine on here, they're pretty small. No, I'm sorry. Here, I think, oh dear. Okay, which one? You don't care. But I think this one's caffeine and this one is nicotine. But they're both pretty small. Morphine. Oh, we've all heard of morphine. And as people were able to figure out the metals, they went to more things of more ingenious poisons. American Chemical Society, she's right up the street. Chem Abstract, she's registered over 20 million compounds. Labs only look for 3,000 at best, okay? And you can change the little side groups and really knock up the potency. Remember, every time there's an angle, that means there's a carbon there. This is the way they do shorthand for all these big molecules with lots of carbon bonded to each other. This is the realm of organic chemistry. So, and there's also hydrogens attached to these guys that you don't see. We just assume. We know that carbon's going to have 4 bonds, so we just count them up that way. Typical chemist evil. I don't know why I wrote that, but it's kind of funny. Anyway, she killed her husband. She had a boyfriend, it turns out. She was a crystal meth addict, and she got away with it for a while. She used fentanyl, which is 100 times more powerful than morphine. And it has a very small difference between morphine, and I won't go into details, but it is one of the sides of this molecule. Taliban murders. Oh, this was terrorism. Terrorism is. I know that 9/11 was not a few murders, but terrorism is usually reserved for the thought that you kill a limited number, but everyone feels at risk. Here there were 7 victims. They all seemed to die in very painful manner. They were laced with cyanide. And most of you were born after this. You may not even remember it. The kills by asphyxiation. It gets in the way of that O2 on the heme. It hits the iron on the heme and attaches, I believe, by the nitrogen. HCN, yep, I think it does that right here. I'm sorry, it says this is supposed to be a triple bond. Lovely, I'm not doing it justice. N triple bond CH, and she holds on to the iron and doesn't let go, so you can breathe all you want and you suffocate. Okay, cost them, they recalled, but the damage was done. So, people were afraid they were being poisoned all the time. And to this day, well, a couple years ago, they think that the person who did it died. They thought that they committed suicide at the time because they never found them. They had suspects, and I think one of their suspects died, and they went in and they got more evidence. Who knows? The permanent legacy is the sealed container. I remember walking through the supermarket in Boulder, Colorado, watching this young girl. Well, I was 8 or 9, so she wasn't. But she was taking the tops off of containers and licking them like cottage cheese and then putting them back. Disgusting. And there were a lot of people out there then. They called them hippies, and they didn't have any means of support or much money, so they would do interesting things like that. And